And let's go to Gene in Pinellas County.
Good morning, Mr. Pippen.
Good morning.
And the other gentleman, I didn't get his name. I just turned my radio on.
Patrick Smith.
How do you do, Patrick?
Good morning.
Good morning. I just turned my radio on. I was listening to your comments about the child that was left out of a will.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it very interesting. My question is, would you be able to offer an option as to a child that was adopted when he was 11 years old by a person, a gentleman?
Okay, so what's the
and
question?
That I was married to.
Yeah.
And then when the child was 12, excuse me, let me start again. I'm sorry, I'm a little fuzzy. The child was adopted after he had a traumatic head injury on a Boy Scout trip to the World's Fair. And so I think that's pretty plain. So then later on, after like 11 years, and the adopted father fell into a few $1 million, which I didn't need or choose to do, but he did adopt the child. The child was disabled from the time he was 12. He was totally cut out of the will. And I haven't pursued that because I'm more concerned about my child. But that was quite a few years ago, and there was no recognition at all that the child was disabled. He adopted him after he was disabled. And he was disabled during the marriage, I might add.
Okay,
and,
so a parent generally has no duty or obligation to leave money to a child or an adopted child.
Okay, I'm glad you helped me with that because it's been on my mind for a few years.
Yeah.
And
well, you're wondering. Did the adopted father die?
Oh, yes.
And how many years ago?
About 10, 15 years ago, something like that. After all this happened, it wasn't a priority item on my list. I was trying to move on and take care of my family.
No, the adopted father
but I was curious.
Yeah, the adopted father had no duty to leave to an adopted child or disabled adopted child. Patrick, anything to that?
Well, I was going to ask a question on time. And just to clarify, the father that passed away, whose will we're speaking of today, is the party that adopted the child, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because it's a different rule if you're adopted away from someone. Like if I put a child up for adoption, that child has no expectation to inherit from me at all under any basis. So I just wanted to clarify that point. Did the adoption occur after the will was made or before?
The child was adopted, and then I guess the will was made years later.
Yeah, that's okay. And
from what I can understand.
I think then I support Joe's answer as being spot on, because the only sort of Hail Mary I was hoping for there is if the will had been made prior to the adoption and then the adoption occurs, there may have been some claim as a pretermitted child, someone but for, the father would have included the child in the will, but he wasn't the child's father at the time the will was made. So because of that timing, I think Joe's answer is the right one.
Now, if the father had died with no will,
different ballgame.
Yeah, different ballgame. So
okay.
if you were still married, then the spouse would have rights, and then the children would also have rights.
Well, there was another issue about, in the divorce, among other things, he tried to shoot my son without going into all the gory details, so it was pretty dicey. But we were married, I think you had to be married 10 years, and then because...
well, that's a Social Security rule you're talking about there, right?
Well, no, it was an alimony issue. That if I read in the in the law books that if and Social Security books that if you had a disabled child, you were still entitled to alimony and support for that child, and that was passed over also. So I was just curious about about the will.
Well, that would be
over and done. I'm not resentful or anything. It would be I appreciate you helping me to clarify.
Okay.
So I can move on a little better.
All right. Well,
So at this point, there would be no resolution to this, whether the child's adopted or not, if the father doesn't choose to or I guess the mother as well.
Unless there was an
choose not to leave
alimony
anything
or
to
child
kids.
support obligation in the postmarital settlement.
Yes, he was supposed to. 5 judges ordered him to put up a $50,000 insurance policy in the event of his death.
Yeah.
Went through the
Yeah, but see, you should have filed a
court.
claim on the estate upon death with 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I didn't have. I should have had the Pippins and the Patricks, but I didn't.
All right.
So,
well, hey, now you have peace of mind, so we're glad to help you that way. So.
Well, I've always had that, but I heard your program and I appreciate your help.
Well, my pleasure.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
my pleasure.